What if every sneeze created a small earthquake? This question comes from seismologist Dr. Rachel Thompson, who asks, if every human sneeze generated a localized earthquake measuring 2.0 on the Richter scale within a 50-meter radius, how would this fundamental change in human biology affect urban planning, social behavior, and global geological stability? Let's imagine it's a quiet Wednesday morning during allergy season when the impossible begins happening worldwide. A businessman in Tokyo sneezes on his morning commute, and suddenly the subway car shakes violently for 3 seconds. A child with a cold sneezes in a London classroom, causing books to fall off shelves and windows to rattle. Within hours, seismologists around the world are detecting thousands of micro-earthquakes that seem to originate from populated areas rather than geological fault lines. The immediate chaos would be unprecedented. Cities during flu season would become disaster zones as each sneeze triggers tremors that knock objects off shelves, crack windows, and create small fissures in roads. Hospitals would face a nightmare scenario where patients with respiratory infections would literally shake the building every time they sneezed, potentially damaging sensitive medical equipment and disrupting surgical procedures. Within the first week, society would face a complete behavioral transformation. People would develop elaborate sneeze suppression techniques, holding their breath and pressing their tongues to the roofs of their mouths to prevent the catastrophic tremors. Restaurants would require customers to step outside before sneezing. Movie theaters would install reinforced seating and require patrons to sign earthquake liability waivers. The economic impact would be staggering. Insurance companies would either go bankrupt or refuse to cover earthquake damage, knowing that any person with allergies could trigger multiple seismic events daily. Construction standards would need complete overhaul as buildings would require earthquake proofing not just for natural disasters, but for the constant microtremors generated by human respiratory reflexes. More surprisingly, social dynamics would change dramatically. People with chronic allergies or respiratory conditions would become social outcasts, banned from public spaces and employment due to their seismic hazard potential. Couples would consider partners' sneeze frequency before marriage. Dating profiles would include sneeze per day statistics alongside height and age. The pharmaceutical industry would experience explosive growth as antihistamines and sneeze suppressants become essential safety equipment rather than comfort medications. Sneeze-free zones would be established around critical infrastructure like nuclear power plants, hospitals, and government buildings, with mandatory medication requirements for entry. But after several months of living with earthquake sneezes, scientists would notice disturbing patterns in the seismic data. The tremors weren't random, they were creating complex interference patterns that seemed to follow mathematical sequences. When multiple people sneezed in proximity, their combined earthquakes would create resonance effects that were far more powerful than individual tremors should produce. Analysis would reveal that crowds of sneezing people were accidentally creating constructive seismic interference, where earthquake waves amplified each other rather than canceling out. A stadium full of people with hay fever could theoretically generate tremors equivalent to a magnitude 5.0 earthquake, enough to cause serious structural damage to nearby buildings. Here's where the discovery becomes truly alarming. Geologists would realize that the sneeze-induced earthquakes weren't just surface phenomena, they were affecting deep geological structures. The constant microtremors were gradually destabilizing fault lines that had been dormant for centuries. The accumulated effect of millions of daily sneezes was literally awakening sleeping earthquake zones. Major fault systems like the San Andreas Fault would show increased activity as the constant background vibration from human sneezes created a seismic massage that reduced friction and made tectonic movements more likely. What started as harmless 2.0 tremors from individual sneezes was evolving into a trigger mechanism for genuine catastrophic earthquakes. But the most shocking revelation would emerge after a year of earthquake sneezing. The phenomenon wasn't biological at all, it was being artificially generated by a network of quantum resonance amplifiers hidden in urban infrastructure worldwide. These devices were designed to convert the kinetic energy of human respiratory reflexes into seismic waves for a very specific purpose. The final twist would reveal that Earth was being prepared for an imminent asteroid impact. The network of sneeze amplifiers was actually a planetary defense system created by a secret international consortium of scientists who had detected an extinction-level asteroid headed for Earth in 18 months. The constant micro-earthquakes weren't accidents, they were systematically weakening the Earth's crust in calculated patterns. When the asteroid hit, instead of creating a single catastrophic impact crater, the pre-weakened crust would allow the impact energy to be distributed across thousands of small fracture points, dramatically reducing the overall devastation. The sneeze earthquakes were essentially turning every human being into an unwitting participant in the most ambitious geoengineering project in history. Every person with allergies was helping to save humanity by gradually preparing Earth's surface to absorb an asteroid impact that would otherwise cause mass extinction. The most remarkable aspect would be that this plan required no conscious human cooperation, it simply relied on the fact that humans naturally sneeze millions of times per day during certain seasons. The secret scientists had created a planetary defense system powered entirely by hay fever and common colds. The day every sneeze created earthquakes would mark the beginning of humanity's most ingenious survival strategy, hidden in plain sight as an annoying seasonal side effect that was actually saving our entire species from cosmic annihilation through the power of collective respiratory reflexes.